Alright, give you a little peek at this ground kit I got. Actually, found this YouTube channel, and this CE Auto Electric. Tony's got some pretty good videos over there relating to automotive electronics and all that. And he's got some pretty cool ground kits. So I ended up, got one for my dad's Mustang, got one for mine. The Mustangs are kind of notorious for blowing up heater cores, and a lot of time that's caused by improper grounding. So I figured I don't really have a heater core in my car anymore, but regardless, you know, you still need proper grounding for all of your electronics to function properly. So it's a pretty cool kit. It's about $100, and it's basically got everything you need to get the job done, to ground the cylinder heads, and you're also going to ground the transmission and the rear axle and all that. But yeah, really complete. Tony's a great guy. I mean, this is a really nice kit he put together here, so it's worth checking out. Check him out on YouTube. He's got some really awesome videos too, so we'll see how far I can get with getting this on there too. Alright, give you a little shot of what I got going on. Got everything cleaned up really well. One thing you want to take care of is make sure you sop up all the oil from down here in the heads and clean the heads up really good. It's the worst part of the job, really, you know, cleaning everything up, getting all the gasket material off. Used a plastic razor blade for that. Used a bunch of Q-tips, you know, to get in wherever any kind of gasket material would have fallen in. You know, like I showed earlier, make sure you stuff some rags in there, it'll make it easier. Scrape all that stuff off, and then you know, just using a vacuum cleaner to suck up as much of it as you can. You know, it's really time consuming to do that. That's the worst part of the job in my opinion, but it pays off in the end. See, like here, I still got a little oil, so I'll probably wipe that out of there. You know, you just don't want any oil coming up and getting on the edge here. Just gonna make it more difficult to get the valve covers to seal properly, so you want it as clean as possible. I'll show you what I did grounding the heads. I can start on this side. Let's see if I can. Got one wire, one ground wire back there. That's the air injection tube on the back of the cylinder head. Same thing on this side. So I got an 8-gauge wire going from the passenger side over to the driver's side, and another 8-gauge wire going from the driver's side head, and I just tied it into this existing ground on the firewall. That's probably all I'm gonna mess with for now for grounding this thing. It's kind of a little project in and of itself, and I really just want to get this thing back together and get it going. So another thing, the new valve covers, this one's got a baffle, and you can see it's got 4 screws. So yesterday I put some red Loctite on them, screwed them in there, and I wanted that to sit overnight so it could lock up as good as possible. And before putting that on, I cleaned all this out with the DX330, you know, a good wax and grease remover. I mean, these are brand new valve covers, but they're really nasty right out of the box, you know, cleaning off this surface and inside and everything. And you know, I'll probably do that again, especially the mounting surfaces, before I go to put them on there. You know, same thing with the other side. Get it all cleaned up, and then probably what I should have done right off the get-go is just put some tape on there to kind of protect the finish. I mean, it's not a show car, but still try to keep it at least halfway nice. Same thing with this side. I actually had a little burr that was stuck inside one of these little bosses, so I had to dig that out with a screwdriver. You know, you want to look over that stuff. A little metal burr could fall off of these things, and you know, the end result's not going to be good for you. So you want to be thorough cleaning all this stuff, get it as nice as possible. So basically the next step with this is cleaning those valve covers again, cleaning up the surface of the heads again, and then what I like to do, a lot of people call this a triple gasket, but I'm going to put a real thin layer of RTV on the head itself, and I'll put a real thin layer on the valve cover, and then put the gasket on. You know, a lot of people call it a triple gasket. That's not the right way to do it, or they recommend not using RTV at all. And I guess for some people that works, but my experience has been whenever I try to put valve cover gaskets on without any kind of RTV, I usually end up with a leak. So I'm going to do what works for me. Other people do what they want to do. It's their car, that's fine. But just telling you how I get the job done. So yeah, I got to get the valve covers on here, and then, you know, once I get the valve covers on, I think the plan is going to be to just let them sit overnight. I don't, you know, even if I get this thing completely finished back together today, I'm just going to let it sit overnight and let that RTV really lock up nice. You know, once again, that's the nice thing about this isn't a daily driver. I'm not in a rush, kind of doing everything at my own leisure instead of being under the gun to get to work on Monday or whatever. So something to take into consideration. But yeah, still got a long way to go. I mean, got to put the valve covers back on there, and get the intake back on and all that. I also got the new spark plugs in there. Those are all tightened up, ready to go. So I'll finish up the tune-up. I still gotta, you know, probably be one of the last things I do is run the new wires on there and all that. So that's it. Get going on this. And one more little tip I want to mention. I took one of the old mounting screws for the valve covers I had on here, and I just run it into the hole, because a lot of times you get some oil that's kind of seeped into these holes. So what I'll do is run this in there, some oil will come seeping up, you dry it off with a rag, back this thing out, wipe it, run it back in there, keep doing that. I mean, it sometimes it only takes a couple times to get whatever's out of there, or whatever's in there out of there. Sometimes it takes like 8 times to screwing this thing in and out. So once again, I mean, it's a laborious process sometimes, but it's really worth it. So when you run your new hardware in there, there's no oil in there to come out and kind of spoil the seal in that area. So like I said, I did every mounting hole. Something to keep in mind. Alright, so here's the driver's side. Got it on there, got it tightened up. Took the tape off of there. One thing to bear in mind as well with putting this on, you know, you want to kind of use like a torque sequence. I started at the bottom, went up to the top, bottom left, upper right, back to the other upper left side, and then the bottom right. And that way you're evenly tightening the valve cover. And I used a 1/4 inch drive ratchet. You know, you don't want to go crazy tightening them. I mean, you want them snugged up, but you don't want to go gorilla on them. So I spent a lot of time just kind of doing it by feel, you know, until that bolt kind of stops and snugs up, but it's not crazy tight. So, you know, take your time. It's going to be worth it in the long run. Get a nice even seal on there. Something else I want to talk about. Like I said, I had to get new mounting hardware because it's basically the stock size. So if you find yourself in the same predicament, the stock size is about 1 inch long. See right there. So you're gonna need about 1 inch long bolt there. And the other thing too, you know, just like everything else you're doing on here, you know, I just kind of cleaned them off with some brake clean. You know, put the bolt in the towel, shot it with some brake clean, kind of wiped the threads off, and then dried them. The other thing I'm going to do is put a little bit of Loctite on there too, just so they don't back themselves out of there. So, got that cleaned up too. And, you know, the other thing, clean out this oil fill area too, which you'd be surprised how much nasty grime came out of there. It looks like it's clean, but it's really not. So, got that fill cap cleaned up. Everything's cleaned. I just got to start smearing the RTV on there. And get this side tidied up. Alright, so here's the RTV on the valve cover. So you can see it just really light smearing on there. Same thing on the head. Alright, the next thing I like to do is just kind of push the gasket on there. You know, make sure all the holes are lined up with the threads. And RTV does a good job of kind of gluing it there to hold it while you're putting the valve cover on there. And I'll put all the mounting bolts in the valve cover and just kind of slide it on there, make sure they all start. And then one by one I'll take them out, put some little bit of Loctite on the threads and put them back in there and start tightening it down. Alright, so got the cover on. You know, put this tape on here just to kind of protect it while getting it in here. Got the bolts snugged up. So next thing I'm gonna do is take the tape off and then finish tightening everything. Probably being kind of goofy, but I just want to take the tape off, you know, stressing the valve cover, pulling that tape off, and then finish tightening it just so everything can relax. Alright, so here it is, all buttoned back up. Pretty much reinstall everything in the reverse order of removal. Pretty cut and dry. Make sure that you double check all your connections, you know, your vacuum cables and all that, vacuum hoses, all your electrical connections. So, turned out pretty good. About ready to reconnect the power and try starting this thing up. Gotta keep in mind, probably gonna have to cycle the key a couple times. You know, don't have any field pressure, so gonna have to build up the pressure in the system. And it's probably gonna be kind of rough starting this thing because it's been sitting here with the battery disconnected, so I'm sure all the keep alive memory got wiped out of the computer, so the EEC4 is gonna have to relearn everything. So it's probably gonna be difficult first few times starting it, so but we'll see what happens.